You just received a phone call from your out-of-state owner who received an electric bill for $400 from the rental property. You're a little bit confused. The tenant was supposed to put the electric in their own name, but obviously they didn't. My name is Harry Heist, and I'm the founding partner of Heist, Weisse Wolk, the property manager's partner. Most lease agreements have a clause that state the tenant is responsible for utilities. The lease should list out those utilities. Most commonly, electric and water are the two utilities that are usually the responsibility of the tenant, at least in the typical yearly lease, not talking about a seasonal lease where sometimes utilities are included. In almost every case, utilities are not included, especially electric. So there you have the lease, and it clearly states that the tenant is responsible for the electric, and the tenant is to put the electric in their name. Well, unfortunately, that's simply not always done. The tenant sometimes does not put the electric in their own name. The tenant moves into the home, and the electric is on, and the water is on, and it's on for a week. It's on for 2 weeks. It's on for a month. And the tenant figures, well, must be free. Don't have to pay. Electric and water are on. And then the bill gets received by the owner of the property. The owner of the property could have a feeling that they can go ahead and shut that electric off. They could call up the electric company. They could tell the electric company that it wasn't supposed to be in their name and they want the electric shut off. Is that legal? It's actually completely illegal. It's considered a prohibited practice that could open the owner up to a 3-month rent penalty plus attorney's fees. But the problem still isn't solved. The electric is on in the owner's name. We can't turn the electric off, and there the tenant is sitting in the home using the electric that the owner's paying for. What happened here? Well, what happened is you allowed the tenant access to the unit. You gave the tenant the keys to the unit without confirming that the tenant had put the electricity in their own name. This is a very common problem. You tell the tenant that they need to put the electricity in their own name. You give the tenant the information where the electric company is. This is all on your sheet that you give to the tenant, the sheet that has the utility company's names and the date of garbage collection and all the information that you give to the tenant. But what you did is you expected the tenant to do what they were supposed to do. Well, we know better. Tenants don't do what they're supposed to do. Oftentimes, they will not put the electricity into their own name until it becomes completely necessary. So you see, you've made a mistake, and you could be held liable to actually pay that electric bill. Could you imagine having to pay a $400 electric bill for a tenant? Now you go to the tenant and you figure, well, I'll just make the tenant pay. I'll give the tenant a 7-day notice and the tenant will pay the electric bill. But you see, this is the same tenant who now is not paying the rent. So not only will you have to evict this tenant, but there's an outstanding electric bill, and the electricity must stay on, so throughout the whole eviction process, the electricity is still on in the tenant's name. Problems like this are completely avoidable. When we have certain things that are avoidable and we don't take action, we are not doing our job as a property manager. You need to make sure this is part of your key release checklist. Having the tenant provide proof that the utility has been placed in their name before the key is released to the tenant. Now, in some cases, utilities must remain on in the name of the owner, and I fully understand this. And in those cases, sometimes we take an additional deposit from the tenant for the utilities. We have a special addendum for the utilities because it has to stay on in the owner's name. Of course, in those situations, we have to deal with them differently. But with electric, in almost every single case, the tenant is responsible for electric, and the tenant is supposed to place the electric in their name before they move in. From this point on, make it an action item. Have a key release checklist, and on the key release checklist, this needs to be one of the most important items that needs to be confirmed before the keys are handed over to your tenant. If you have any questions about this topic or any other topic that we discuss, please feel free to email us at info@evict.com.